Hey, Winnie Anderson here. Welcome to the after show for Let's Talk Tech. Let's Talk Tech is the show for entrepreneurs who are confused, frustrated, and overwhelmed by the software systems, services, and apps needed to run and grow a profitable business today, but you are determined to not let it hold you back, and you are ready to have that breakthrough that you know you need technology for, right? So today's after show is all about e-commerce, and the after show portion of Let's Talk Tech is literally after our episode has aired for the week. Then I get together with the person who was featured in that episode, and we continue the discussion about our topic. Sometimes we go over questions that came in too late for me to include in the original recording of the episode. Sometimes there were things that came up that we would have liked to go into a little bit more detail about, but we just didn't have time. So that's what the after show is all about. We do this, obviously we are live as we record it, and then the video itself stays in my Blab feed until I decide, frankly, to delete it. And they're going to be deleted at some point. So you do definitely want to come back and watch it, share the recording with your friends. And the videos will be edited just slightly, and then they'll appear on the show's YouTube channel. So if you're not familiar with Let's Talk Tech, come on, what's the matter with you here? You want to go to techshowpodcast.com, and that's where the show is located on iTunes. You can subscribe there. You can rate and review the show, and when you subscribe on iTunes, you get the show downloaded to the device of choice for you. So it's a kind of saves you some steps. You can also become a fan of the show by stopping over at theletstalktechshow.com, and that's where you can get all of the great resources that my guests provide. And we've got things like there's a questionnaire that I created to help you think through your next tech acquisition. There's a chart that has a list of free directories where you can opt in and list your business for free, so you can build your search engine optimization and your web presence. There's all kinds of great resources there, so you definitely want to check that out. So thanks for Judy for posting those links, and we are going to go ahead and we're going to get started. So with me today is my awesome guest, and that is Marvin Napuli. Marvin is a vice president of business development for Merchant Focus, and I'm going to let him explain what Merchant Focus does, and then we're going to get right into the questions and chat about e-commerce. And of course, we're going to take your questions, so feel free to fire away. So Marvin, why don't you fill everybody in on what you do for Merchant Focus and what Merchant Focus does?
So I'm the vice president here at Merchant Focus. We specialize in credit card processing for anyone doing e-commerce retail. Basically, anyone looking for a solution to process credit cards. So we're here to help you out as well as being the experts, as being as your liaison to those special needs. Should you not know how to set up an e-commerce account, or you think it's a little convoluted, we're here to make the process very nice and easy. Especially, there is no dumb questions or silly questions. So anything that you guys have where you have been questioning or wondering on how to implement or how to integrate, by all means, use us as a resource in order to further your business.
Awesome. So let me share with you guys why I reached out to Marvin specifically, and to then we'll just start getting into the content. I was at an event out in San Diego, was Webcast Profit Toolkit, which is put on by my mentor, Mike Koenigs. And one of the great things about Mike's events is he has these various panels of experts. And the experts include entrepreneurs who are having great success in a particular area. And then they also sometimes are industry experts. So, and that was a panel that Marvin was on that was made up of entrepreneurs as well as different industry experts. And Marvin did such a great job demystifying this whole subject of taking payments and managing the growth of your business, that even though back then I was in the thinking and the planning stages for Let's Talk Tech, I knew this was going to be an important topic, and I wanted somebody who really could explain it simply. So that's what made me then follow up with him and bring him on the show. So when I went out on my own, we get this stuff from all these gurus that talk about, selling making money in your sleep and all this great stuff, right, that we buy into. We buy into the dream. And then the devil is in the details. Like, how the heck do you actually do it? And so when I was first getting involved with selling things online, you're following these gurus and they all recommend tools that they use. Well, that's because they're up here, right? You're not ready yet. So I really needed something that just explained how this whole thing works. So Marvin, one of the things that I think is confusing about e-commerce is all of the pieces that you need. And you need 3 pieces, right? You need a merchant account, a payment gateway, and then a shopping cart, right?
Correct. That's correct. So what happens is when the first time the barrier of entry, when the clients come onto your website, they start picking the products, what they want, they enter that into the shopping cart. After the shopping cart, they then ask them to check out or buy now. That goes to the payment gateway, which basically is like authorized.net or, USAE Pay or NMI. Basically what they do is they validate the card holders who they say they are. So when you put in your first name, last name, the credit card number, the city and state, it validates that it's not identity theft or credit card fraud. It then passes the transaction over to the processor, who then processes the transactions and deposits the funds into your bank account. So that's from start to finish of how the whole process goes, from collecting a payment to receiving the payment.
Okay. And the reason there are these 3 pieces is because each, I'm going to call them person, even though we know they're companies, each person solves a specific problem in this whole process. So you need to have these pieces that all fit together. Now, there are some single self-contained processes out there, right? There are tools. There's PayPal, Stripe. The challenge that we had talked about on the original episode was that these self-contained systems are great when a business is in its early startup stages, maybe early revenue generation. But the problem comes as, and this was just a jaw dropper to me when I was listening to you explain this at Mike's event, the problem becomes as your business grows and it becomes more complex, you're offering different offerings, monthly subscription kinds of things and big ticket items and small items and that sort of thing. And sometimes often, right, when you get to a certain point, these single source processes just are not effective when you hit, the big time, right? Can you talk a little bit about the problem that people can run into?
Yeah, definitely. So no, I like PayPal. I like Stripe. Those solutions are very good when you first getting started. The problem is they're not very sophisticated. Anyone can get one of those accounts. The problem is because of the specific industry that these people are in, it doesn't make sense for you if you're doing a subscription, if you're offering coaching or marketing tools, to be put up next to a person who's selling T-shirts. Or hot dogs or a local vendor or something like that. So you really want to be with someone that takes time to understand who you are, what your offer is, where your business is going to go. And I usually like to err on the side of caution and have the right partners in place at the beginning so that you don't have to retell your story again. Right. I mean, we all know how it is dealing with customer service people. You keep on telling the same story again and again and again, and it's so frustrating, or they transfer you to someone else. If you work with someone from the beginning, they actually watch your business grow. They learn what you're doing so that when you do have this spike or your business does take off, it's a good thing. They understand it. They're like, oh, Winnie, you're doing great. We saw that there was a raise in volume. What was it for? Their inner workings with you. And that's what I really mean by saying it's a partnership. It's not just a service provider, but it's someone who's going to make sure that your funds are getting to where they need to be because you have people to pay out. You have bills to pay, as well as collecting a payment for the services rendered.
Right.
So you want to make sure that you have the right people in place, but understanding there is a cost associated with that.
Right.
So in that, Winnie and I have discussed that before, there is thresholds where you want to start looking for more sophistication as you get there, but you want to be anticipating that instead of being reactionary.
Right. So really it should be, as you're looking at forecasting your business to increase, right? So you're going to have a launch in June, let's say. So if your numbers are X and you're going to put that offer out, theoretically you should have a minimum close rate of Y, right? And that should bring in an influx of revenue, right? So this is all part of managing this business. And what Marvin is really talking about, and because a big question I get from people is, well, why the heck do they need to know that I'm going to have a spike in business? Why should they be worried about that? I'll tell you why. It's the government. There's something called, right? There's a cash transaction report, CTRs, that need to be reported on these large cash transactions. And so you've got to protect yourself, prove that you're not a bad guy or a bad girl. And the other companies have to demonstrate that they're not allowing bad people into their system. So you're going to have these crazy spikes as you're building this business and as you bring in new offerings, right? I just had a little spike myself, thank goodness. So I think that it's working with somebody who understands the nature of the business and whose first thought is not that, you're running guns or something. So I know it sounds extreme, but really that's what it's all about, right? It's about maintaining the integrity of the system and making sure that all the reports and things like that are being done.
That's correct. So the invoicing of the transactions is very important because, most people will think, well, I'm making money. Everyone's happy. Why are they drilling me, on what I'm doing? And it is Big Brother. You have to appease those giants in order to run a successful business.
Right.
The last thing you want to do is run this large transactions and then they can hold your funds, FYI, they can hold it for up to a year. So imagine you just did $50,000 in transaction sales. Your books, CDs, whatever it is already gone and shipped. Now you're out product and not paid for it. How are you going to re-up on all those things?
Yeah.
When they can hold your money for a year. That's detrimental. That's a game changer.
Yeah, that's terrifying is what it is. I mean, you've worked so hard to have this great breakthrough in your business, and then one of your key players in your operations team, your merchant provider, is holding your money. And as Marvin said, now you can't pay the bills. Now you can't, do the things that you need to do to keep that, to sustain that momentum. So this is why one of the things we talked about was that the importance of having these key players who really understand the nature of online business. And it's why, as much as you love your local banker, they're not always the best choice when you start moving into e-commerce. And I'm talking about whether you are a brick and mortar business and you're selling online, or you're somebody like me whose whole business is virtual, right?
No, that's correct. I mean, I love my community bank. I do all my business there. But if I was going to go for an e-commerce business, unfortunately, they don't have the capabilities or the answers that I'm going to need. Do they know what a gateway is? Do they know that I'm using a shopping cart? Do they know that I have affiliates running traffic? They're going to be like, what's an affiliate?
Yeah, that's the dead truth. Yeah.
It is. So exactly. So, I mean, they don't understand how a business can go viral. Their advertising is TV, radio, simple media. They don't understand that we have a list that we can promote, or an Instagram, a Twitter, Facebook. They don't understand those marketing medias. So unfortunately, as much as I love doing my banking with them, my deposits will still go there. But they won't be the ones handling the merchant account.
Yeah, exactly. So let's look at, I have a few questions that I want to share with you. So let me, and I'm navigating through my multiple screens here. So one of the things that I think we're all concerned about, and if we're not, we should, is safety and security. Right. You mentioned making sure that, that's part of what the process does, is to make sure the card holder is the card holder, that it's still authorized with that level of credit available on it. let's talk about security and how once you decide to take virtual payments, credit card, debit card, payment transfer, whatever, where does the responsibility lie or the protection? I don't want to have somebody's credit card information. So to me, that's one of the advantages of using a system. Put it in. I don't want to know about it. How does that all work?
Well, that's the great question. So if you do have a subscription or a membership, something where you're doing like modules where people can buy 3, 6, 9, 12 months a program, that's where your gateway is in effect. So again, one of those 3 players, the second one is the gateway where they can capture the credit card information. There is no liability on you. So God forbid there was like a breach like in Home Depot or something like that. You're not liable for that business or for, God forbid, releasing that information. Authorized.net, who's already compliant, already scanned by PCI standards, they already have everything there. So all you do is sign up for the ARB, which is called automatic recurring billing. You put that in there. They capture the credit card information once. So say you bill it on the 15th of every month. Every 15th, that $39.99 gets hit again on the same card. Should it reject, you then get a notification that card ending in 4007, Mr. Smith, card declined. And then all you do is you go to your QuickBooks or whatever you have it integrated with, you find out who it is, then you retouch your client. Oh, go, hey, what happened? And then he could be like, oh, my wallet was stolen, and here's the new card information. Because, God forbid, when that gets compromised, you forget all the moving pieces.
Right. Yeah. And that's a great point. So when you receive notification that a payment has been declined, you've probably had payments declined in your life. It's not always because there's something wrong with that card. It could be that, that the address was changed and the address doesn't match, or there's something there, or it expired. That's another great one. You forget to change the expiration date on your credit card when you get your new one in. So it's just a matter of you get that notice, and then you need to have some kind of mechanism to follow up as soon as possible with your folks. I was just doing an interview with my good friend Lisa Roberts, who is launching her podcast soon, Healthy Business, Healthy Profits. And we were talking about developing these processes. So is that something, Marvin, and that you guys would help a business with in creating these processes, or is that something that they need to figure that out on their own, which is totally fine, but I just didn't know where your counseling ends and starts.
Well, typically, the first couple of questions is what's your business model? Is it recurring? Is it a membership?
Right.
Is it a straight sale? If there's some continuity to it, then I would, okay, now you need this, There's certain conversation triggers that would help me help them with the variables.
Okay. So let's look then at helping folks understand where they are and then how to make the right decision for them. Okay, so if you are an established business, let's say, whether you're personal services or professional services, or you're, a true brick and mortar and you have products and you're ready to start moving online, what do you think would be their very first thing to do? Would it be to start looking for a merchant provider?
No, I would first start getting up the website, figuring out, and then website as well as products.
Okay.
What are you going to offer? Because obviously you don't want to be like Walmart and offer everything in the sun.
Right.
You want to kind of set up your specific niche.
Right.
What am I going to be targeting? And that's based on if they already had, like you said, a brick and mortar retail, if they are going to move to e-commerce, what was getting more traffic? Because obviously you don't want to launch something that's has no need in the market.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay.
once you start doing that, the shopping cart would be into play, and then you kind of figure out how am I going to drive traffic to my site for these products. And that's where like a JV would come into effect. Affiliates, people on your list.
Right. So, and for somebody who doesn't have them, that might be referral partners that are in your area. Yeah. So, so first thing is then to think of this strategically.
Correct.
You're going to dive into this new line of revenue, and you want to approach it very strategically. How does it fit in with your current model? Do you have the infrastructure from a website and an offering standpoint to create those offers? And then you start thinking about the shopping cart in terms of what's going to actually list these items for sale and then deliver them, right? Because the shopping cart actually is part of the delivering mechanism, right?
So it would be like if I'm going to connect it to Amazon,
right,
or UPS, you're going to want to have your shipping in place, unless it is an info product, something digital. Then that's a different animal,
right?
But then if it does get to a tangible, I would then start talking to them. Who is your fulfillment company? Who's shipping it? Who's building these products for you? Are you using disc.com or something of that nature?
Right.
And then I would ask also, who is the CRM? Who is going to be controlling this? Is it going to be Infusionsoft? Is it going to be, what have you? Kind of Connective. These are all great names. So what I can do is, if I ever do a client who's asking me for referrals or resources, I have a laundry list of people going, here are 3 great CRMs, here are 3 shopping carts, and I kind of decipher from the conversation what is a good fit for them.
Great. Okay, that's fantastic. So then for those of us who are really building a virtual presence and who are really getting into these intangible products, the information products, then again, you want to speak to someone who really understands that model. And it's in all likelihood, it is not your local bank or, your local merchant account provider, because they're used to dealing with true merchants who are local and physical.
Like a card present environment, basically.
Right.
And since everything is going to be virtual with a non-card swipe, that's why, again, just to go back a little bit on the security feature, because it is a faceless environment, matching that information, having the gateway saying that it's not fraud is very, very important. And that's why it is a separate entity. It is a different price, but it's a necessity.
Yeah. It is. So then would your organization also help somebody who is now going to start, you're speaking and you're making an offer, even at the local chamber of commerce, you're speaking at lunch and you're making an offer. Merchant Focus would be the company that would supply with like the live, right? Because you need to do something physical with the card. Is that right?
Yes. So just like Square, but again, Square is like PayPal. So our solution, again, it's tied to the merchant account. We know it's scheduled for live events. You would have a card swiper on your iPad, your iPhone, or your Android, even to an iTouch, and you would just swipe payments. And again, by doing it that way, it moves a lot faster than putting down your name, your card number. And for me, I get nervous when I see that, and maybe just my own because I'm in the industry, but God forbid the paperwork gets lost.
Right.
That's, it's your whole privacy, I even know when I'm missing $5 from my bank account, God forbid my bank account or credit card information is out there. It's not very comforting. Yeah,
so part of this really is thinking about risk management from your business standpoint, as well as managing the risk for your customers, because buying, as we know, is all about trust. I know if I was someplace and I saw people having to fill out some kind of form manually, I ain't buying.
No. And the only time that I would feel comfortable, if say like at Mike's event, you were online, you were at the table, you're filling it out, and then you actually handed it to someone.
Right. I
would feel better with that because you're in a controlled environment. It's not like randoms. Because you were at Mike's event, you can't just walk in there. So that it's controlled. And most of the people that are attending those events or those shows, you're somehow connected for that 6 degrees of separation.
Yeah, that's true. But again, it is all about trust, and your payment system is a big piece of the trust building that you are doing with your potential clients and your clients. And I don't know if you want to comment about this, but I know that shopping cart abandonment, for example, is a really big problem. Do you want to talk about that at all, or is it just a side road we don't want to go down?
Well, the shopping cart abandonment, I mean, who are you using for that? That's why, I mean, I probably I have top 5, and only because over the past 10 years, they've never had the abandonment issue, so okay. That's the one thing is when you are looking for referrals or resources, look to the people that are referring it to you and what's their track history. And, okay. It's like finding a good mechanic.
Yeah.
It's like I have history here. They've done a good job.
Right.
My mom goes there, my brother goes there, my neighbor goes, kind of like that. If you ever do hear of situations of shopping cart abandonment, that's one strike, you're out,
Okay. That's a great point then. So let's talk a little bit about how somebody makes a decision to choose, how do you decide between the different tools that are out there? Obviously, you guys are not the only provider in the world. So what should we be thinking about when we're saying, okay, I need to do something, I need to move to the next level because my business is really starting to take off? What do I look at when I'm trying to evaluate a processor or a merchant account provider?
Honestly, for me, I mean, again, there's a lot of great processors out there. I would go to the people that you're following, the leaders, I mean, obviously they wouldn't be recommending that if they had a bad problem with it. I mean, Mike on the stage even said that he had a bad experience with a certain processor. Right. And because his experience with me, he went and moved on with me, which kind of, success leaves traces. I always say that. So if someone is using that, I would probably take it to heart, have that as influence on maybe I should dig in a little bit. But again, because there's so many different players out there, find one that you feel comfortable with. If you're having a conversation and your gut is telling you this is good, it's not, I'm not being sold on a product. It's actually informative. There's knowledge. I'm being educated to make a good decision. That's the person I'd like to talk to. Don't tell me it's cheap. Don't tell me that it's expensive, but give me some value add, because I'll make my decision based on what my takeaways. If this guy was just saying yes, yes, yes to me, or there was a lot of pauses in the conversation, I mean, we talk all the time, so you start feeling that it's you know how you feel.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that. I had an interview yesterday with someone who talked about the importance of this little internal alarm bell, and your instincts were given to you for a reason, and that's so that they would go off when there's something that's creeping you out. And I think that this issue of deciding on price is, let's address this elephant in the room. Mm-hmm. As good business people, we should be operating on a budget. And we should certainly be looking at controlling our expenses and making sure that we're getting a return on investment for that expense. Then you need to think about what's important in your own decision-making process. And I'll give you an example for me. I am a big service person. My whole background has been in various segments of the service industry, and I am willing to pay for good service. Because it costs money. If I want to, I know we all complain about these, there should be free software and free this, free that. How the heck do you think this stuff gets made?
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody dedicates their time to it, and they deserve to be paid. The internet needs to be paid. I got news for you. The electric company doesn't barter, okay? So if you really want quality service and you want quality offerings, that costs money.
It's going to come at a price. Agreed. And sometimes if it's something's free or cheap, you're going to get what you pay for. And if you pay nothing, right, you're going to get, nothing. And imagine trying to talk to them. I mean, that's why PayPal and Stripe there's two faceless. I get it, a turnkey solution. But sometimes I want to have a real person to speak to.
Right.
This is my situation. I'm not just selling a T-shirt online with a screen print on it. I'm actually doing some coaching, some mentoring. And you want someone to be like, oh, I get it. I know what you're doing. Oh, a mastermind program? Okay, it's like a think tank. Oh, okay. So your cost could be $5,000. No problem. You know, that's the person I want to work with, not like somebody said, oh yeah, we can handle it. We can handle it. But who uses you? Can you tell me a few people, you know?
Yeah, and that's a great point because, so again, back to the price. If something is free or cheap, they've got to make money somehow, and they've got to then manage their own costs and their own profitability. We're all in here to make money. Yes, we want to serve and we want to help people, but we can't do that if we're in the poorhouse. So I think you should always really ask yourself, what is their business model? How are they funding? How am I able to get free? Now, you know, I just use, and I'll tell you, I use Zoom when I do my interviews and when I do meetings. I love Zoom, zoom.us. Zoom has a free level of service, which is a great opportunity to try something, which I did, used it for a month, wore it out, loved it, and then thought, you know what, I need to pay these people because I'm wearing their service out and I need more of it. So as soon as I did, loved it even more. So I want people who, are going to respond promptly to me, even if it is just by email. When I need something and I want to be able to pick up the phone, I want somebody to answer it and understand what I'm talking about. And that requires a certain level of compensation to be able to fund the employees and the infrastructure. So I think that if you've really been focused on that you want something on the cheap, you need to really stop and ask yourself, are you doing yourself a disservice by not having a better level of offering? So I'll get off my soapbox because I know.
No, that's actually a great point. And one thing I could tell everybody out there, if you are concerned with price and say the merchant processing, for example, or the gateway or the shopping cart, build that into your product price.
Right.
So if you're thinking like you're $59.99, and you're not even too sure really how you came up with that number, and your processing, say, overhead is $10 a month, go $69.99. Now you're insulating yourself from those costs, as well as you're going to compound that number across multiple sales. So talk about building yourself a cushion from being absorbing all of those fees by yourself. No, I actually marked it up and it's built into it.
Yeah, that is a great point. So again, not that we want to make this all about price, but if you're really feeling some kind of squeeze that you can't afford a service, a tool that you really need to take your business to the next level, then sister, you better look at yourself in the mirror and ask if you're really priced appropriately, because we all know we all struggle with price, right? We hate, I don't want to charge too much, so you've got to really treat this like a business and figure out what your costs are, and then figure out what your margin is, so you'll be able to pay yourself and cover expenses that are really required to take your business to that next level. Sorry, they cost money.
Yeah, and you're right when you said before, setting your projections, that's part of the whole strategic way of thinking, and I know there seems to be a lot of moving parts, but that's why if you're talking to someone who understands you, they can give you this feedback.
Right.
Because sometimes we go on with blinders on. We're not thinking of all the other variables. That's why if you have a strategic partner, such as, say Merchant Focus for your processing, I can help you build your offer, and going, oh, Marvin, I got the shopping cart. I already got the products in place. Okay, well, this is what's going to cost you for these 3 services. Okay, so maybe I should rethink my product price. Exactly.
That is a fantastic point. And then you've got all of these, I consider them almost hidden costs, which this is part of your back end, really. It's your administrative kind of costs. So you've got to factor in, like for me, for example, my business has really started to take off. It must be you, Marvin, because the next month, things really start to pick up. So see, Marvin has some kind of magic.
That's fantastic.
So as soon as you start seeing that things are really taking off, you're going to need help, right? You're going to need administrative help. So you're going to have to factor that into your overall pricing. You're going to need additional, and we've been using this term sophistication. You're going to need more sophisticated tools to be able to deliver a great experience for your customers, to make your life simpler. So all of that is going to then give you pause and say, hey, maybe I should look at my prices because I might need to raise them because it takes money to get you to that next level of revenue.
It's your value too. I mean, don't sell yourself cheap. If your knowledge, your experience is comes at a price, and the more that you can prove that, that's and build that into your product, it's going to make you look successful as well as give you the revenue that you're looking for.
Yeah, it really is. So while it's great that your mentors and your advisors are encouraging you to start selling products, because that really is, in my opinion, it's the way to wealth, when you're then able to leverage your knowledge and package products and programs to be able to serve, one to many rather than continuously one to one. So that really is a fabulous thing for you to do. But know that it's not all unicorns and rainbows, that there are these administrative details, it's part of running a business that you're going to need to then reflect on. Not that you want to overanalyze them, you know what I'm saying? You want to balance that solid business head with moving forward. And that takes working with people who get what you do and who understand where you're going and who don't look at you like, what are you, nuts? And they just discovered the internet yesterday.
Exactly. I mean, I always tell people you're only as strong as your camp. So if your camp is a virtual assistant and then a roving CFO to control your funds, because remember, your business is to generate revenue. These little intricacies should be handled by experts.
Yeah, that's a great point. Remember, you got into your business in order to work your magic, right? To use your fabulous gifts to get your message out. And you are, in all likelihood, a genius in your gift.
Correct.
You just need to know enough about the other stuff to make good business decisions and then to hire somebody to handle that stuff for you. Again, I was just talking to somebody yesterday doing an interview, and she ran a business that had multiple locations. She ran an agency, a branding agency. She had offices in 3 states. She was wildly profitable for 25 years. That's pretty darn good. But it was because she leveraged her greatest gifts and really stayed focused on, 1, charging what she was worth, and 2, making sure she charged enough to cover the help that she needed. And that's part of, business planning and being a great business person.
Agreed.
So I'll get off my soapbox. Enough lecturing. Any questions that I haven't seen any come in for Marvin? Do you have any, before we sign off, do you have any questions about starting to sell online? Maybe you've been selling online and you're having problems with your merchant account, which right there, that's a problem. Or you are forecasting moving into this area and you want to pick his brain, because I think it's very rare to find somebody who is as knowledgeable as Marvin is in this area and have the opportunity to ask them a live question. So going once, going twice. All right. Well, I'm just going to want to make sure that you check out the letstalktechshow.com. There we go. The fabulous Judy, of course, posted the link to get information from Merchant Focus. And you also want to visit the letstalktechshow.com. Check out Marvin's episode. I thought it was great, frankly. In my opinion, it was really great information. And we also have the show notes that have resources for you and how you can get a hold of Marvin, how you can learn more about them. And so you want to really make sure that you subscribe to the show so you get all this kind of great information. We're all about demystifying the software systems, services, and apps that you need to run and grow a wildly profitable business today. And you get to stay on top of meeting great people like Marvin. And if you want to have a safe place where you can ask questions about the technology that you're dealing with, you want to join our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Let's Talk Tech Show. Totally safe environment. Anybody's mean, they're out. Okay, so you can feel free to ask the kind of question that maybe you feel, is that stupid question? Because it's not stupid if you got it. So you definitely want to join that. And then also make sure you subscribe and become a fan of the show so you get information about these great events. You get to ask your questions and you get to stay on top of the technology that is out there. So if we don't have any other questions, then I will sign off today. I want to thank Marvin. You want to be sure that you get in touch with him, and his information is all on the letstalktechshow.com site too. So it's been a great chatting with you guys. Have a fabulous afternoon. And Marvin, thanks very much for being with us today.
It was my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.